Heyo everybody, Zion over here from Nintendo Life, and it brings me such great joy to be sharing with you our review of the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles on Nintendo Switch. Now, this review was originally written by Kate Gray for NintendoLife.com, but was reworked into this video by me. The last time we saw Phoenix Wright and friends, the stars of the Ace Attorney franchise, they were in a made-up country. Spirit of Justice came out for 3DS in 2016 and was relatively divisive. A lot of critics ranked it highly, but others found issue with its wishy-washy mechanics and its heavy reliance on made-up mysticism. It also marked a fairly big change in the Ace Attorney games, though they've always been quite coy about where they're set. They've never really left the United States, or Japan if you're a purist. At least until Spirit of Justice, where significant chunks of the story are set in a fictional country. The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles, as many fans will already know, is set in the Meiji-era Japan and Victorian England, making it almost the exact opposite of Spirit of Justice. Instead of being made up, it's firmly rooted in historical fact and steeped in the vernacular of the time. It can be quite jarring to go from the often light-hearted, goofy fictional world of Phoenix Wright to the weirdly real world of Wright's ancestors, Ryunosuke Naruhodo, not least because of the latter is also very, very Japanese. The Great Ace Attorney relies so much on Japanese culture, language, and history that it can at times feel alienating, even though it would be ludicrous to ask a Japanese game made by Japanese writers to tone it down. It's no one's fault, and it's no one's problem to fix. It just is simply what it is. The localization is fantastic and does a great job of explaining things as you go, whether it's the writing of Sosuke Natsume, a very famous Japanese novelist who used to be on the 1,000 yen note, or a play on words that requires knowledge of the intricacies of the Japanese language. But even with all that, it does occasionally feel like a very kind friend is explaining an inside joke to you. You end up with all the context, but you're still not really in on the joke. There's still so much to enjoy about the writing though that it's not really an issue for most of the time. You can tell even without speaking Japanese the amount of thought, care, and research that actually went into the text. In contrast, characters from smoggy old London feel genuinely British, world-weary, cynical, utterly tired of the cold and the fog. And then in contrast, the Japanese characters seem nervous, wide-eyed, and overly polite. It's all part of their characters, of course, especially in a foreign and not particularly welcome country. Not to mention the overt racism they're faced with, like jury members, instantly distrusting them because of their provenance. Or one particular prosecutor that's constantly throwing nasty barbs at them based on their ethnicity. Almost everything else about the game is similarly brilliant. The backgrounds are stunningly detailed, and it's almost a shame that only a very small amount of it can be examined for unique dialogue. Likewise, the level of quality in the detailed animations and character personas is almost too emotional for a longtime fan to bear, because it shows how far the series has actually come, and how much respect and admiration it's gained in the 20 years since it first came out. It's truly incredible to see characters interacting with each other, from gentle prods with an umbrella to a maid pouring tea over her master's lap as a passive-aggressive way to tell him to shut up. The character interactions are the heart of the Great Ace Attorney, because the new gimmicks, every Ace Attorney adds at least one, largely involve people interacting with other people. In the court-based portions of the game, multiple witnesses can appear at once, and part of the methods you'll use to defend your client will involve how the witnesses react to someone else's testimony. Then there's the jury, which is pulled from the real-life British legal system, despite a lot of Ace Attorney's style weirdness added in. People directly involved with the case can be on the jury, for example. The jury can declare their verdict at any point, and if they all decide your client is guilty, then you have to claw back their support by pitting their opinions against one another. Finally, there's the investigative gimmick, in which Sherlock Holmes, the legally distinct but still recognizable detective, makes a bunch of observations, and then Ryunosuke has to gently redirect him to the right conclusions like an errant Roomba that's stuck on a rug. These might all sound complicated in theory, but in practice, it's like a whole new toy box filled with goodies. Both the investigative portions of the game and the court cases are constantly giving Ryunosuke new things to do, rather than just clicking through text boxes. And for the most part, they work fantastically. There's just enough signposting that it's easy enough to figure out what to do next, without the dreaded boring bits where you're either too far ahead of the case or have absolutely no idea what to do next. Some parts will even require you to make rather exciting leaps of logic, but they're relatively small leaps. All the same, you'll feel smart. The characters can take a while to grow on you, especially if you aren't a fan of Herlock Sholmes' personality, which lies somewhere in the intersection between David Tennant's Doctor Who, Douglas Adams' Dirk Gently, and an overconfident golden retriever. Ryunosuke, on the other hand, is charmingly earnest, as he accidentally implicates his clients over and over again through overenthusiastic attempts to find the truth. His sidekick, Sasato, begins as a distant but knowledgeable assistant and matures into a version of Maya that's much better at her job. We still love you, Maya. The accessibility options in the game deserve a shout out of their own as well. Although you can't change the text size, you can change the speed, the text box transparency, and even set it to autoplay, which runs through the text automatically, but still requires you to do the inputs. Or story mode, which automates the entire thing. No button presses required. You can also turn off vibration and screen flashes if you wish. You can also play the cases in any order from various chapters in the case, sort of like a DVD selection menu. This makes achievements easier to get, and we're not really sure entirely why the game has achievements, but a lot of them add nicely to the goofiness of the Ace Attorney series, like an achievement for examining every ladder. And that one's for the longtime fans. Speaking of DVD selection menus, the Great Ace Attorney has a lot of special features too. From DLC costumes for the second game to unused voice recordings, concept art, scrapped music, and all the trailers, animation, and weird little vignettes that were used to promote the game. There's a lot to check out, and almost all of it has developer commentary too. We even found ourselves wishing for a developer commentary for the whole game, but that's probably way too much work. Plus, the score is fantastic. It's hard to say if it's as memorable and iconic as the original tunes, but it's so much richer and more complex, and we haven't even been exposed to it for 20 years. Nevertheless, it takes the music we know and love and reworks it into something familiar, yet new. But now we're nearing the bottom of the review. You know what that means by now. The bad news, the annoying bits, the negative points. So here it goes. For one, the cast of repeating characters is weirdly small, and you'll be left feeling at times that the population of Victorian London was no bigger than the number of people in a Sainsbury's on a Tuesday evening. And Kate wanted me to tell you that apparently that's a supermarket. I'm not aware. Is that like a Piggly Wiggly? I don't know. Because if so, then I can understand. The same handful of people will play all the various roles: witness, victim, suspect, and the real murderer, like a play where the production company could only afford 3 actors. It's an odd choice in some respects, but it allows you to really get to know these people and their foibles and motives. Secondly, the game withholds quite a few of its answers until very, very late in the game, by which we mean the second game in the duology, which must have been odd when the first game came out, since there was no guarantee of an actual sequel happening. With the 2 cases bundled as one, it's less of a big deal. It just makes some of the more major secrets feel a bit drawn out. Thirdly, the historical setting can hold the game back a little on occasion. A lot of things either don't exist, like fingerprinting, DNA testing, luminol, or they've just been invented, like photography and the formalization of the legal system. To get around this, Herlock Sholmes will often just sort of invent the technology on the fly, which we're honestly willing to suspend our disbelief for. He is a genius after all, and it is a lot more fun to be able to spray down surfaces to find fingerprints, even if it is anachronistic. And that's about it. To summarize, it's sometimes hard to follow along with all the Japanese cultural references and in-jokes, the cast feels a little small, the game is frustratingly coy about its secrets, the need to rely on historical accuracy means that a lot of the staples of modern justice are absent, but what's new? Many of these things have been part of the Ace Attorney series for a long time, albeit in smaller doses. It's hard to imagine anyone really holding it against this beautiful, thoughtful expansion to the story for giving us more of the same. And case in point, that's exactly what fans want. More of the same, but better. This content-stuffed bumper pack of gorgeously remastered stories is exactly what we were hoping for, and more. The The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles is two brilliant games for the price of one, and it not only gives us more of what we love, but gives us something that is visually, narratively, and historically deeper than ever before. There's a bit of a learning curve that you'll have to get on top of to meet the game where it's at, but honestly, we couldn't have asked for a better version of the game we've been wanting for years. We here at Nintendo Life give The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles on Nintendo Switch a 9 out of 10. If you'd like to go and check out our full written review, you can find that along with more news and information on The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles and the Ace Attorney series over at nintendolife.com. And as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like this, then why don't you go ahead and bring that subscribe button to justice by pointing your finger at it and giving it a click. Just be nice about it. And then ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we put up a new video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Zion from Nintendo Life. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next time.